Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more speculation for Warhammer 3. You see, yesterday's news kinda ignited something. I'm starting to feel a bit more positive about the game, especially about certain things that were talked about in yesterday's blog. But there's one thing in specific, as you can see on the screen, that I want to talk about, and that is the new endgame scenarios. Let's just recap here very quickly. New dynamic endgame scenarios. Randomized mid to late game challenges we're introducing to challenge the late game steamroll, where the player is so powerful that there's little to no challenge left and there's less of a reason to complete the campaign. Think greenskin invasions or resurgences of the undead as a few examples. So I want to talk about this because I've got a bit of a wish list. Obviously this is something that's probably being tampered with, and it's something that we could see in an early form with Immortal Empire's beta drop, but we could see it expand in the future. So this kind of video serves as a wish list and maybe some suggestions for CA. Who knows, maybe they've already got these ideas in their mind. So obviously we're already used to this idea of the scenario because we already kind of have one in Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, which is the Chaos Invasion. The only problem is that it's really flawed, mainly because, well, it's not very strong, is it? In Warhammer 1 it was stronger, but in Warhammer 2, I mean, you could easily use an assassin to kill off the 3 characters at the beginning, and yeah, that's the invasion over. I'm not sure if this is the case nowadays in Warhammer 2, but after I saw someone do that, I think it was Legend of Total War, you know, it just kind of stops it being a threat, doesn't it? But the idea behind the invasion is actually pretty cool, and I think that's probably what they're going to use as a base framework. But obviously they have to take into account that different locations and spawns for these armies are going to be needed, because not everyone is going to be around the area of the Empire or Kislev where the Chaos Invasion normally starts. And yeah, this is kind of something that we can expect, because there's going to be times that we want to play in Lustria or in the Southlands in Grand Cafe. So I'm already expecting them to have different dynamic spawns, and that sounds pretty interesting, but there's a few things that I want from this. Number one, there needs to be a decently large pool of possible events, so when you're playing, you will get randomized events. If you decide to play as the Lizardmen, maybe a Skaven invasion. If you decide to play as the Tomb Kings, maybe an invasion of vampire counts who worship Nagash, you know, but also having a few different ones in the same location. So a Greenskin War, which can pretty much spawn anywhere. A Demonic Incursion can pretty much spawn anywhere. The idea is just to have a few different things, because I know there's a lot of people who play the same races over and over, mostly because, well, they just enjoy it. We all have our favorite races, and definitely we need to have a few different ones just to kind of have some sort of variety. Order races also need to be involved here, because sometimes we want to play as a neutral destruction or even evil race, and it would be kind of cool if, say, we were playing as Manfred in Sylvania, and the Empire then decide, yeah, there's going to be a rebellion and they're going to try and take over the Empire again. They're going to try and finally expel the vampires out. You know, something like that is going to be kind of cool because it will give you variety, and it's nice to see the actual good guys being your adversary. Another example would be, say, for example, playing as Norska and there's a Bretonnian Crusade, or even playing as the Tomb Kings and there's a Bretonnian Crusade, which is something that we've known about in lore for a number of times now. I think something like that would be really, really cool. Variety would be absolutely awesome here. Next would be confirmation about modability. Yeah, a lot of things in Total War are actually moddable, but we've just gotten this information right now. We don't know much about it. I imagine that they'll be able to do a spotlight on this on a blog or something, but it would be nice to know if this is moddable or not, as, yeah, modders could then make their own scenarios. We could have some lore-friendly mod packs including these types of things, which I think would be kind of cool in general. Just imagine, say, for example, OVN Lost Factions or Kitaf Southern Realms mod being able to also deal with some sort of invasions. Like, that would be kind of cool. I'm just using those mods as examples, but in general, just imagine what modders could be able to do just to add in a bit more flavor. It's just adding some more stuff for more replayability. I feel like settings would be interesting also. So before you start your campaign, if you go into the settings section, you can toggle if you want this or not, because I've already seen some people say that they don't want this, which, you know, fair enough. I know some people don't want it. I imagine that a mod could turn that off anyway, but some settings would be cool, not just for that, but maybe a difficulty slider. Say for example, you're playing on normal or hard, but you want the endgame scenarios to be like we had in Warhammer 2, where we had a option to make the invasion harder. This is going to be something that we need again, but just for all the dynamic endgame scenarios. So just one thing where you can just slide as to how strong it could be, because that would be awesome. Maybe you just want to feel like you're being overwhelmed, but you want to be able to fight them back too. Having a few options, maybe if it goes onto the settings menu and just have a few things to tweak around with, would be awesome. I think in general that would benefit Total War as a whole, if there were more options to kind of fiddle around with and just tailor your campaign to your personal wants and need, rather than, say for example, the stripped down settings that we currently have, which in all fairness work very well. But I'm talking in a very similar sense to that of Crusader Kings 3, where you have a lot of different options that you can play around with, and that kind of allows you to personalize your experience a bit more. One thing I want to see about this is evolution. So when it comes to Creative Assembly, sometimes they add in some mechanics and then it doesn't really get tampered with too much in the future, or it just gets kind of forgotten about, and it's something that you can't really blame them for. Like, say for example, the Norska thing, it happens a lot with the monster hunts. But if this is going to be a core mechanic for campaigns, it needs to get changed up as time progresses. So if a new race gets added in, say for example the Chaos Dwarves, or if we do end up getting Ind and Koresh in the future, imagine a Snakeman invasion, a Chaos Dwarf invasion, or they're going to have to deal with that too, but I don't want to deal with the same things that we've already been dealing with. So add new types of scenarios as new races are getting implemented. I think something like that would be really, really cool. It makes sense because if we're going to be playing this game over and over, I don't know about you guys, but I have thousands of hours into the series already, and obviously this is not including Warhammer 3. Warhammer 3 I'm still building up, but I want to have thousands of hours on Warhammer 3, and if it's going to be the same scenarios over and over, it'll get kind of boring. So if new patches and new races introduce new ones too, that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm not saying that this should be a priority. In fact, it doesn't have to be every patch, it doesn't have to be every race pack, but it just needs to happen so often that it's not boring, because, well, let's be honest, if you look at the Chaos Invasion, it gets kind of boring after a while because you've already dealt with the same thing over and over. And finally, really it's a small thing, but it's something for lore-friendly people who would probably want the same thing. It would be awesome if we had lore-friendly events, like going, for example, through the timeline of Warhammer Fantasy that's usually listed out in all the army books and so on, which Creative Assembly do have access to, and did an invasion for a specific race where it would actually be a lore-friendly event. This is just to add in a little bit more fun factor. So if you're playing as the Empire, the vampires start again with a new version of the Vampire Wars. So it doesn't have to be an event that's already happened, but just taking into account for a new version, and I think that would be just kind of cool. Keeping things in a lore-friendly sense, but not very strictly in a lore-friendly sense, will be very fun for people who'd appreciate it, and it would just add in a bit more pizzazz, I guess. I think that's the best way of explaining it. Like I said, maybe Creative Assembly already has these ideas in the bank already, maybe they don't, we'll just have to wait and see, but I'm really excited about this. This is something that I've spoken about in videos in the past, in like last year or the year before, so this is cool. This is really, really cool. I just can't wait to see what happens with this. This is going to be absolutely exciting. But with all that being said, what do you guys want to see from this event? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's start a bit of a discussion, because yeah, I'm really curious to see what you guys think.